street art, it's kind of amazing because it's crazy how they blew up so big, street artists. You know, they took it to another level when graffiti was so huge. I mean, it's still huge, but you know, graffiti writers, they just, a lot of them, they hate the street artists because a lot of the street artists are doing so well and so huge in the gallery world. They feel like, some graffiti artists feel like, hey, if it wasn't for us graffiti writers who started on the subway cars and bombed the streets, you know, there wouldn't be street artists, you know? Which kind of true and not true, because a lot of the street artists never even looked at graffiti. They just like, you know, just started doing just shit on their own. You know, they'll just like come up with some type of image and just go around the city and paste them shit. They don't even know
messages.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of them with messages. You know, it's just kind of, sometimes graffiti writers, they think they don't think out the box. You know, they're too like stubborn. They're too cocky. You know, I used to be like that too sometimes. I can't front, you know. But you say to yourself, there's a reason why they're making it big. You know, they're making smart moves, and you know, you can't hate on them. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, they're an artist just like you. So I was thinking, instead of beefing with street artists, why not collaborate with a street artist? You know, which is always a smart thing to do. And that's how it came about with me and Shepard Fairey, you know, collaborating together, because he's like the biggest street artist in the world.
I'm Shepard Fairey. I'm a street artist, graphic designer, activist. This is my work here. I first discovered Cope 2's work just by driving into New York to go bombing. I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, and I would always come into the city and from the Cross Bronx Expressway all the way into Manhattan, wherever I was, I would see Cope throw-ups. And Cope was one of those people that was in pretty much every neighborhood I went to. He was in Brooklyn, he was in Manhattan, uptown, downtown, and he had a very distinct style with his throw up. It was something that, you know, was legible but had flavor. And when I was first getting into graffiti, there were a few people that stood out to me. Cope was one of them. Jest and Med were a couple other guys. This was around 1990, early 90s. But Cope was the guy that had the most coverage in the most different parts of the city. And for me, coming from Rhode Island and not being a part of graffiti culture, just doing my stickers and stencils, you know, I was a little intimidated by graffiti, but I was also really inspired by it, especially people that seem to have the drive to go all city and go big and get good spots, and Cope was one of those people. So for me, you know, the level of that I was willing to push myself to, the amount of bombing I was willing to do, the amount of, you know, stuff I was willing to put everywhere, the risks I would take. A lot of that was driven by a few very influential people, and Cope was one of the main ones. Now, I had seen some pictures of Cope, and he's a pretty menacing dude, so I didn't know whether I'd ever meet him. I didn't know whether I wanted to meet him. But at one point in our gallery in LA, we did a show of hand-done skateboard graphics, and Cope had one of the boards in the show, and I said to the person that curated it, hey, that's awesome that you have Cope in the show. And he said, I'll connect you to. And the next thing you know, I get a really great email from Cope.
You know, these are huge street artists, you know? So I'm like, why not, you know, collaborate with a big street artist? And when I did that, people were taking like, oh shit, Cope collaborated with Shepard Fairey or Bay? People were bugging on them. And people today still like complain, saying I'm a sellout, Obey's a sellout. And it's just crazy how I learned as I grew up to accept a person for who they are as a person, not for their craft. When I met Shepard Fairey, he's a real dude. You know, I looked at him as a person, not because he's Obey and he's Shepard Fairey. To me, he's a man just like me. You know what I'm saying? He got a family like me. He's in the struggle. And he still does illegal shit because he goes out there illegally. He's been arrested, he's been in jail, posting all those Obey icons. So you can't really say he's a sellout. He's just a different kind of graffiti artist. He's just a street artist that went out there and he did his thing. That's how he got up. He was doing everything illegal in the beginning. He was pasting shit everywhere. He got so big with that image of Andre the Giant. Yo, my man just went to another level in the galleries, clothing. You can't hate on it.
For me, I was attracted to graffiti and street art because it was a bureaucracy-free way to get art out there. But anyone doing it is always taking a risk of being arrested. So I think a lot of people, as the cops clean stuff quicker or were faster to arrest people, started to have to work quickly. And one thing I love about Cope is that he developed a style that had flavor, but he could execute it quickly. That two-color throw up, and he just went everywhere with it. He blasted the entire city with it in a way that I really respected, and something I related to, because I was much more about quantity of getting up than I was about making each piece a masterpiece, because you never know how long something's gonna last on the street. So if you can do it quickly and do it everywhere, then you feel less bad if it gets buffed. So I really related to Cope on that level. When we finally connected to work on some collaborative stuff in 2010, it was great because we went uptown and did a wall in the Bronx, a production that he's managed for several years, and Martha Cooper, who shot a lot of the photos in Subway Art, came up and shot us, and then we made a collaborative poster. And then that sort of developed into potentially doing stuff through my clothing line, with Cope going over my Obey icon. And Cope always liked that icon and was really cool about asking me when he was working on productions if I wanted to send him posters, and he would incorporate it as sort of bookends to what he was doing. It was really generous of him. And he also took me out to do some freeway spots, which I don't know the Bronx, so having Cope give me a tour of the Bronx for good spots was pretty amazing.
You can hate it all you want, but it pays the bills. It got me out the hood. I got a home with fucking 2 acres of land, and I'm living good, man. You know what I'm saying? I can come out my door and see deers outside. I don't have to see niggas selling drugs and beefing, and I don't see that anymore. I'm tired of that, man. And in the end of the day, it's about the kids, not about me. It's about my kids. I want my kids to live good. You know what I'm saying? I want them to get picked up at the little yellow bus in the corner of the block. You know, not take the subway or walk 3-4 blocks through some hood. Who knows, it might get shot, some beef. That shit is played, man. Who does that, man? Like, come on, man. Like, I can't live that, man. I just got tired of it, man. You know, in the end of the day, man, it's like, I respect all the street artists, and a lot of other people, some other artists I did collaborations, but when I did it with Shepard Fairey, it was really huge because I'm known as like a huge, big, hardcore graffiti bomber from the Bronx that does a collaboration with Obey. People are caught off guard with that shit. They were bugging. They were bugging on it.